The WNBA says it is building a league where women are finally safe, where stars are protected, and where greatness is celebrated. But somewhere behind the happy slogans, someone approved a note that told officials to slow down Caitlin Clark's rise with rough play as long as it looked like fair, hard basketball. That note, according to a voice on a recording now being shared in every sports reporter's group chat, wasn't just an idea. It was an order, and the only reason we're hearing about it is because someone finally made a mistake. Someone leaked it. Now ask yourself, if it was fake, why are so many people in a panic? On July 30th, inside a private meeting room at the WNBA headquarters in New York, the league's top bosses gathered. High-level officials, Indiana Fever executives, PR people, lawyers, and even a retired referee who now works as an advisor were there. The door was locked. The mood was tense. The topic of the meeting was damage control. Not for what they had done, but because someone out there now knew. And then Caitlin Clark walked in. She wasn't on the guest list. She didn't knock. She opened the door like she owned the place because, honestly, she had earned it. And the room froze. Not a sound, not a movement. Just the heavy weight of the truth pressing down on every person in a suit in that room. "So," she said, tossing her phone on the table with the audio still playing, "is this what helping women looks like to you?" The recording played through the speaker. A man's voice, low but clear. "We don't want her taking over the story. Keep. It's physical, clean, but physical. It evens the playing field." Silence. One of the league's directors reached out to stop the audio. Another tried to give a nervous laugh. A PR person whispered that recording hasn't been proven to be real. The lawyer finally spoke up, his voice flat, not looking at anyone. "There's no proof that recording came from anyone connected to this room." Clark didn't blink. "If it's not real," she said, "then why does everyone in this room look like they just saw a ghost?" That's when the meeting stopped being private and started being one for the history books. The silence didn't last long. A man sitting 3 chairs from the commissioner leaned forward, his jacket tight across his chest, his voice sharp and confident. "We don't tell referees to target players," he said. "This league is physical. It always has been. That's professional basketball. It's not personal." Clark didn't move. She looked right at him, then turned her eyes to the former head of referees, sitting quietly in the corner. "So the elbow to my ribs in Chicago, the one that put me out for 2 games, that was just tradition." No one answered. "I watched the video 30 times. So did the internet. 10 million views. And not one foul was called. Not one post from the league speaking out against it. Nothing from the referees, not even a review." She let her words hang. In the air, just a lot of silence. The PR director tried to step in. "You're a star, Caitlin. Stars get a lot of contact. That's how the game has always been played." She cut him off. "No, that's how stars get broken." Her voice grew sharper. "This season, I've missed 10 games. That's a third of the year. I haven't been able to play more than 5 games in a row without being knocked out of a game. Not taken. Out for a rest, not put on the bench. Knocked out. And I'm 22. A younger executive tried to smooth things over. "Look, there's no secret plan here. The game is intense, yes, but that's part of why fans love it." "That's not why they love it," Clark snapped. "They love it because they finally saw something real, because I showed up. And now it feels like the league is trying to erase the very thing that boosted their ratings." The old referee finally cleared his throat. "No one is erasing you." Clark turned to him, her look steady and cold. "No. Then explain why every time I'm bleeding, the cameras cut away." The room fell silent again. She leaned forward, her voice low and sharp as a razor. "You keep calling it physical play. But when it only goes one way. When it happens to land on one player's face every night without protection and without a penalty, it's not a rule, it's a plan. She stood up and looked across the table. So tell me the truth. Is contact just part of the game, or has it become your favorite tool for keeping people in their place? A chair creaked as the WNBA's top media advisor leaned back, folding his arms and looking at her like she was a new intern, not the most watched player in the league. His voice was smooth, practiced, the kind you hear from people doing damage control. Caitlin, maybe the problem isn't the system. Maybe it's how people see things, the way fans understand things, the way stories grow. Clark didn't blink, but a muscle in her jaw tightened. Her voice dropped, steady, but no longer calm. It was heavy now, not just accusing them, but exposing them. No, she said. It's not what the fans see, it's what you choose to show them. The room got tense. You built this machine, she went on slowly. You pick the camera angles, you write the captions, you choose when to be silent. She tapped the table. I was left out of the All-Star game. Not hurt, not suspended, just erased. You know what happened next? 102 million viewers. Disappeared. The ratings dropped harder than I did in that Chicago game. She turned toward the media boss. I didn't see a single news story with the words, "League made a mistake." Not one interview asking why your most followed player was watching from her couch. No statement from the league. Just a lot of old tweets and empty catchphrases. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, her voice colder now. That's not how people see things. That's a planned story. Someone from the legal team cleared their throat, but Clark didn't stop. I don't need this league to like me. I don't need the PR team to give me a slogan. I don't need your TV shows to praise me for charity work or for having great leadership. Energy. She paused. I need you to stop twisting who I am. The temperature in the room dropped. This wasn't just defiance anymore. It was a revelation. She wasn't the bright-eyed rookie smiling for the cameras. There was disappointment in her voice, but deeper than that was something worse. Clarity. They came to me because I was real, she said. And the second that got too dangerous for your story, you twisted it. You painted me as difficult, spoiled, a player who divides people. Her eyes swept the room, stopping again on the media advisor. I'm not your story, she said, her voice quiet but final. You don't get to write the ending. One of the Fever executives finally broke the silence. He was a middle-aged man in a nice blazer, with a stack of notes and a tone of practiced sympathy. We're doing everything we can with the money we have, he said carefully. Indiana isn't a big market team. We don't have the same resources as other teams. We're trying to build around you, Caitlin. It's just going to take time. Clark sat, still, just watching him, as if she was trying to figure out how much of that he actually believed. Then, with sharp precision, she spoke. No one forced you to build a team around me. The words were flat, almost cold, but you could feel the heat behind them. No one told you to put a 22-year-old on the court for 36 minutes a night, with no backup, no breaks, no protection. Her voice got darker, sharper. You don't get to say we're building when I'm the only beam holding up the roof. You don't get to cry small market when your entire marketing budget is my jersey. She looked across the table at her coach, who had been silent the whole time, her hands folded tightly. And you, Clark said, making it personal. I want you to say it again. The coach blinked. Say what? Clark held her gaze. Say what you said. After I was pulled off the floor, bleeding, in Phoenix? Say it out loud. In front of them. The coach shifted in her chair. Caitlin, say it. A pause, then barely a whisper. It just is what it is. Clark leaned back. Her laugh was short and bitter. There it is. She stood and walked slowly around the table, her voice steady. "You put me out there every night like a campaign slogan. You keep me on the floor while I limp through injuries and headaches. When the cameras ask about it, you shrug and say, 'It is what it is.'" She stopped behind the coach's chair. "That's not leadership. That's carelessness in a team polo shirt." No one moved. No one dared to speak. Clark walked back to her seat and sat down, calm again, but colder than before. "You don't get to hide behind market size or player development or time. You made a choice. You chose being seen over being safe, hype over health. And now that it's time to pay the price, you want to pretend you have no power." Her eyes scanned the room one more time. "Start paying." The silence cracked when Erin Kane finally stood up, calm, sharp, and totally in control. No drama, just a folder in her hand and a mind that was 10 steps ahead of everyone else. "You've all been talking about damage control," she began, looking at their faces like a surgeon before an operation. "About the media, about appearances, about control. But what you should have been asking is what happens if the system turns on you." No one interrupted. Kane opened the folder and laid out 3 documents. "This is the current player contract. It ends on October 31st, 2025. That's in 14 months. And it's not just getting an update, it's getting a complete overhaul." Someone from WNBA Legal leaned forward, frowning. "We know the timeline." Kane nodded. "Then you also know the Players' Union has suggested changes, including rules about workplace safety, both physical and mental." Her voice was exact, but the words were heavy. "Let's imagine a rule gets added. One that lets a player ask for a trade or cancel their contract if it's proven their work environment is a constant threat to their mental or physical health." She didn't blink. "Now let's imagine that player is the most famous face the league has seen in a generation, and the public story, backed up by video, medical records. And silence from the league shows her as unprotected and overworked." The league's top lawyer leaned back, his voice sharp. "Are you suggesting Caitlin plans to use a rule that doesn't even exist yet?" Clark didn't move or speak, just looked at Kane, who gave a tiny nod before answering. "I'm suggesting," Kane said, "that you're sitting in a room with the very reason that rule will exist in the first place." Someone whispered something down the table. A chair scraped. The PR director shifted his weight, wanting to cut in, but unable to find the words, because this wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was like looking in a mirror. Kane closed the folder. "You thought you were building a league around her. It turns out you were just building a legal case against yourselves." All eyes turned back to Clark. She still hadn't said a word, but her silence now wasn't weakness. It was permission. A cough broke the tension, followed by a smirk. One of the league's veteran image consultants, clean-shaven and smug, leaned forward. "So, that photo of you and the Liberty staff, all smiles in the tunnel. Just being a good sport, or should we be looking for a deeper meaning?" Clark didn't even move. Her expression sharpened. "I smiled," she said, "because for once, I wasn't being treated like a story you could just throw away." The consultant blinked. "I smiled because no one there looked at me like I was one bad fall away from being someone else's PR problem." Her voice was steady, but the room could feel the edge in every word. "You want to know what it's like in that Liberty tunnel? You want to know why I stayed an extra 10 minutes talking to people you now call a threat to the league?" She leaned forward. "They have planes." A few people looked confused. "Private charter flights, no layovers, no 3 a.m. flights after playing back-to-back games. They invested in rest, not just a roster. They know recovery is part of playing well." She turned to the league operations person. "How many times did I land in Indiana after midnight this season? How many days did I go straight from the airport to practice? No answer. And it's not just flights, she went on. Their coach doesn't treat injuries like a hassle. Their GM built their team 2 years in advance. They make trades like it matters, like we matter. She glanced at Kane, then back at the room. I spent one conversation with their coach and felt more protected than I have in 6 months with my own team. Then came the line that broke the room's composure. Sabrina said it best. We have enough in the locker room because they don't show up. Every night, just trying to survive. Clark's voice dropped, softer now. I've spent this entire season playing not to get hurt. Another pause. They play to win. She had barely finished her last sentence when the league's head of media raised a hand like a traffic cop. We're getting off topic, he said, his voice tight. This meeting is about league-wide issues, not single refereeing mistakes. Clark didn't even turn to him. She just stared straight ahead. You cut me off every time I speak about another player. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. No one wanted to look at her. You let us get elbowed, shoved, and hit from behind. And then when we react, that's when you blow the whistle. That's when you give out fines. She stood up, slower this time, controlled. But angry Kalia Copper got hit. Then she got called for her reaction. She threw a hand up, didn't even swear, and the refs were faster with the whistle than they ever are when I take an arm to my ribs. She took one step forward. No one tweeted support, no statement from the league, just fines, edits, and silence. The media officer tried again, quieter. Caitlin, with your platform, ... double quotes. With my platform, I get to speak. She cut in. And I'm going to use it. Her voice rose now, not yelling, just lifting with a weight so everyone could feel it. This is no longer about missed calls. It's about the message, the unspoken rule that we're supposed to take it quietly because that's better for marketing. She looked around the room. No one in this league should be punished for speaking out against violence. No one should be coached to accept it. A beat. And no one, she said, her eyes landing coldly on the media chair, gets to shut me up because it's bad for your brand. Silence. Clark's voice settled. This stopped being about basketball a long time ago. This is about image, and I didn't sign a rookie contract to be your campaign poster. She let it sit. I signed to play. The tension that had been bubbling under the surface finally exploded. The league's head of referees leaned forward, his voice cutting through the room like a knife. So that's what this is now? He barked. You're accusing me of changing the game to keep you in check? You think I sit in a booth and decide who gets hit and who gets calls? Clark didn't move. She just picked up a remote and turned to the large TV on the wall. The screen turned on. A still image filled the room. Her body twisted in midair, an elbow driving into her ribs. A slow-motion replay followed. Her feet never touched the ground again that play. Chicago, Game 32. No foul called. I left with internal bruising and missed the next 2 games. She turned back to the room. You want to talk about changing the game? Let's start with what you leave out. The referee's face turned red, but he said nothing. The video kept playing in silence. Another angle, another hit. Still no whistle. Across the table, a junior member of the league's policy team, maybe 30 years old, spoke up hesitantly. I think we've been under pressure to keep the league balanced, he said, to spread the attention around. But maybe ... maybe we're doing it wrong. That cracked something. The older executives didn't argue. They didn't defend themselves. They had nothing left to say. Clark sat back down slowly, her eyes locked on the screen. Now paused on her face in the middle of a pained expression, her body falling to the floor. She didn't raise her voice this time. She didn't need to. You didn't just let it happen, she said calmly. You recorded it. You showed it on TV. You made money from it. And then you acted like it was just another play. No one met her eyes. You say I'm paranoid, she went on, her voice tightening. But paranoia doesn't come with video evidence. It comes when the truth gets ignored again and again by the people who are paid to protect it. The referee leaned back but said nothing. And for the first time in that meeting, no one defended him. Erin Kane didn't need to be told what to do. She stood up with a cool calm, reached into her briefcase, and pulled out a thick, well-used folder. She spoke like someone tired of watching beginners pretend they were still in control. This is a legal exit plan, she said flatly, opening the folder. Written 6 weeks ago, checked by the union's top lawyers. It lists several ways Caitlin can leave if the new player contract includes a rule for hostile or unsafe work environments. Someone in the legal department sat up straighter. There's no such rule yet. That hasn't been approved. Kane didn't even look up. Not yet. She laid out the pages like evidence. Trade request, history. Mental health protections under federal law. Medical records of repeated injuries. Statistics. Matched with game videos. She continued, let me save you the trouble. The new contract is going to shift this league's entire power structure. Why do you think so many veterans signed one-year deals? Why do you think the players' union is pushing for opt-outs tied to the work environment? She looked at Clark, then back at the room. They're not guessing. They're getting ready. A PR executive let out a sharp breath. So this is all just for leverage. She's threatening to leave. Clark finally spoke, her voice soft but strong. As iron, I'm not threatening anything. I'm preparing. Then, looking forward, she leaned in. You all knew the pressure was building. You knew the system was breaking. And while everyone else was quietly trying to adapt, I just chose to stop pretending. She didn't shout. I'm not the first player to see the cracks. I'm just the first to walk through them. Silence again, but this time it didn't feel like shock. It felt like understanding. Like a room full of people suddenly realizing they were no longer dealing with a player. They were dealing with a movement. She didn't wait for applause. She didn't need anyone to agree with her. Caitlin Clark stood up slowly, calmly, like someone who'd already knocked over the chessboard and watched all the pieces fall. No chairs creaked, no phones buzzed. The entire room was so quiet it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Clark picked up her folder, not filled with trade requests, but with timelines, data, and proof. The kind of folder that doesn't ask for favors, it delivers final offers. She turned toward the door, then stopped. Her voice cut cleanly through the corporate room. I didn't come here to ask for a transfer. The words hung in the air, sharp and cold. I came to reset the rules a beat. No one spoke, because anything they said would sound weak. Behind her, Kane closed a folder like a judge giving a sentence. The door clicked shut, and she was gone. But her power didn't leave with her. It stayed in the room. From the far end of the table, one of the junior executives, the one whose job was just to listen, finally broke the silence. His voice was more a thought than a statement. If she leaves, who's next? No one answered. Because for the first time in that league office, they weren't talking about a news story. They were facing a day of reckoning.